Welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this activist training program. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Budget 101. We're going to be learning about this beautiful process that just started. We are in budget season in New Jersey. As many of you know, the governor just released her first budget address last week. And as we are understanding and learning what she is proposing, we want to learn how this process goes here in New Jersey. And this is what this training is going to be today. But first, I want to share a little bit about the League and who we are. The League of Women Voters of New Jersey encourage informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding in major public policy issues and influence public and policies throughout education and advocacy. The League is proud to be nonpartisan, either supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government. But we do always work on vital issues of concern to our members and the public. Thank you to our partners for supporting in this training tonight. And here are some housekeeping that I would like to share with all of us. This training will be recorded. A follow-up email will be sent with materials highlighted in the training, including the slides. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to minimize sound issues. Eric and I will be monitoring the chat box. If you have any question or thought throughout the call, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Make sure you identify yourself with your name, your league, and your pronouns when you are asking questions. Some community norms that I would like to share. Please bring yourself and limit distractions. What is learned here lives here. Please share what you learned today with everyone. No one knows everything, but together we know a lot. And please assume positive intent in everything that is shared here today. With that, I am happy to introduce all of you our amazing, ¿cómo se dice invitado, Eric?
Guest.
Our amazing guest, Eric. Eric is from the Many Coalition and also from the New Jersey policy perspective. Eric is an amazing person. He understands the budget in and out here in New Jersey, and he will explain us what is this process. Eric, take it over. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay, great. Hello, thank you so much for the kind introduction. My name is Eric Benson. I'm the coalition manager for the Many Budget Coalition. I would have dyed my beard green for you all tonight, but I used all the paint this weekend. So I'm going to give you an overview of the New Jersey budget, why it matters, and what we're all doing to get involved and get engaged. So let's see here. So let me give you a broad, this is something that the New Jersey state budget is something that impacts us in our day-to-day lives, but something that we don't always see or consider. And it's an opaque process. It's hard to understand like how it works or how to get involved or what is it for. The League of Women Voters does a great job training activists and around the state. So I think folks here have a general understanding. Who's our governor? Who's our assembly members? Who's our New Jersey state senators? But one of their big jobs is this annual budget constitutional deadline of June 30th. It's about $60 billion on an annual basis. And like how that money is raised and spent, it impacts us on a day-to-day basis. So who we are. It's New Jersey Policy Perspective is a nonpartisan, nonprofit think tank. We're based here in New Jersey, and they focus on state budget, tax policy, economic justice issues. They do a lot of research and analyze how New Jersey raises and spends money. They publish reports, they do data, and gives like policy recommendations. We have a couple analysts, and they go through core areas: tax and state budget priorities. Someone is working on an economic inequality. We have a public health analyst, immigration and criminal justice, and climate and transportation. So, when New Jersey policy perspective, they tend to do the data and the policy backing. And then we've got our budget coalition for the many, which leans more towards the organizing and public pressure part of it. And our coalition, we've been working together for over a decade, bringing together over 40 organizations across New Jersey. It's a pool of advocates, organizers, policy experts, community leaders, religious leaders. And we have a simple idea. Our state budget should be equitable and truly for the many, not the elite few. And our coalition works through a variety of tactics. So it's public engagement and education, strategic communications, and we do coordinated advocacy to leverage the collective power of some of New Jersey's fiercest advocates. And I get a lot of guidance from my leadership team. It's New Jersey Policy Perspective, New Jersey Citizen Action, Working Families Party, and Make the Road New Jersey. So our goals for today's presentation really to give you an understanding of how the New Jersey budget works and it intersects with your everyday life, learn how the state balances its budget, and give you tools and some confidence to be able to advocate to your legislators on issues that you would like to see funded. At our core, I think our group, we believe taxes are good. They are how we pool our resources for the benefit of everybody. They fund our schools, our roads, libraries, parks, social safety nets, public transit, public safety, and so much more. And this is really, how we come together as a community and we take care of each other. Also, to the core of it is it's who pays and what we get. Unlike the federal budget, the effects, good and bad, our New Jersey budget can be felt much closer to home. And that means you could also have a much greater direct impact on what's happening. I want to start off with a little game. What's in the budget? Okay. Everyone get your finger out and then point on the screen. Where do you think $1 million is on the scale here? Everyone got an idea? All right. If you guessed all the way far over to the left here, you're right. Some people might guess somewhere in the middle. But when you're talking these billions, millions, dollars, and cents, like it just you might as well be talking to my 5-year-old about bananas. Like sometimes the size of these numbers don't make sense to us. But $1 million is somewhere very close to the very beginning of this. Our state budget has this is on a scale of 1 billion. Our state budget, I talked at the top, is $60 billion annually. So what do you get for 1 million of that? Just a tiny fraction. It can get you 3 preschool classrooms. You can give 100 families $10,000. You could replace 150 lead service lines for $1 million, or you can get a brand new, community center. And when we talk about like the scale, it's such a small percentage. And so sometimes you can look at like the $1 million as part of our overall budget. It's a rounding error in terms of the big number. But at the same time, $1 million can alter the trajectory of a community. It's just so hard to keep track of and can really get lost in the size of the annual budget. The budget has got to be, it's two sides of a balance sheet. Revenues is the money that you bring in. Expenditures is the money that and things that you pay for. And revenues are their taxes and fees. Expenditures is the spending. They're not bad words. That's just the basis of how government operates, federal, state, and local. Almost everything that government does, it involves spending money. And every dollar that they spend, it's got to be obtained via tax, or you can call it other things, user fees, tolls, fares, park entry fees. That's all income. So this is a rough mock-up of the state budget based on like real spending in the budget, and this the real budget's much bigger. The example here shows that the state must make sure that the revenues match the expenditures, and the state, again, we can't print money, we can't spend more money than we have. So these are a couple of these, income tax, which you pay out of your paycheck. Sales tax is what they collect when you're purchasing goods at the store or online. Corporate taxes is based on their profits. The gas tax, a couple pennies on every gallon of gas you top off. They collect that, and that's a tax that they use to pay for roads, bridges. Expenditures, these are a short list of things that we spend money on. A lot of it, big portion of it, proportionally, does go to school aid, providing health care benefits, higher ed, tax rebates. Um, so where does the money go? The most of the money in the budget goes towards like basic public investments, and there's a lot of myth about there's tons of waste in the state budget. But the reality is like a lot of the money that goes to pay for personnel and staffing. So on the pie chart here, you can see the biggest chunk goes to schools and higher education, providing health insurance, corrections, transportation. So this is all pieces of the pie. Where does the money? Okay, so if you're trying to balance the budget, there's two ends of it. You can either raise more funds or you can make cuts. And this year we're hearing a little bit about, we could make New Jersey more efficient. We can cut costs. Again, it goes to wasteful government spending. And so I say you can't doge New Jersey. So we actually have far less staff working for the state of New Jersey than we did 20 years ago, even though the demand for services and the need has gone up. So if you want to create some efficiency, who is it efficient for? If we cut Department of Motor Vehicles, if we cut staffing at the DMV and you're stuck waiting in line for a real ID, who's that efficient for? Or is it helpful for the state to save money if you're the one that's on hold, trying to, call the office to find out how you fill out the form to collect your family medical leave benefits? What good I know my League of Women Voters, you have a lot of environmental supporters. What good are laws protecting the environment if we don't have enough staff at the Department of Environmental Protection enforcing those laws? So, so there's not too much left to trim. We talked at the top of the call here. We're in peak budget season now. I like talking about the budget all day, every day, any day. But with the governor's public address that happened late last week, it really kicks off the beginning of New Jersey's budget season. So we are still digesting the details of it, but this is a couple of highlights from the governor's address. And it's actually fiscal year 27. I got to update that. But the governor again proposed to fully fund school pensions and the school funding formula, maintaining cash reserves and reducing deficits. So when the governor took over, New Jersey was operating at a $1.5 billion structural deficit. And then she did a press release, which is unusual, before the real budget address. Says if we do nothing, we just maintain status quo, our budget deficit goes from 1.5 to $3 billion structural deficit. She made a couple of cuts to proposing stay New Jersey is property tax rebate for seniors, but it was income limited to $500,000. If you make $500,000 as a retired or as a senior who owns a property, that's a very expensive program. If you're earning $500,000 a year, maybe you don't need that, and there's other priorities that we can spend that money on instead. So the governor talked about ways to dial that back, and the governor proposed a couple ways to close corporate loopholes, and that's a good start. But she still has a $1.5 billion deficit. So even with some cuts and some new revenue, we're still falling short of closing the gap. New Jersey has a couple, $5-6 billion in cash reserves that'll keep the lights on if we don't have the income. But if you keep running a deficit, you're going to run out. The governor didn't expand any cash assistance programs, or in the light of the federal cuts, a lot of people's health care expenses, the Affordable Care Act credits, went up in costs, and there's no money to backfill or assist people with those rising cost premiums. Clean Energy Fund has been a long debate, governors both sides, and it's a time-tailed tradition now to raid the Clean Energy Fund, which was intended to invest in clean energy programs, energy efficiency programs, which in the long term would actually reduce and lower energy costs. But they raid the Clean Energy Fund and they dedicate it for other things that would just keep the lights on, and we are shorting ourselves some of those investments. Okay, budget process. Okay, here's in the perfect world how it'd work. A Schoolhouse Rock version, that's what my colleague Peter Chen calls it, version of the budget process. The governor would announce a budget proposal. The public would get a chance to respond. The legislature gets to ask departments, Department of Education, Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Protection, ask them about their spending plans and what do you need to maintain to meet the needs of the people. The legislature would then propose its own budget bill. And they would take the public feedback, the incorporation, because they're going to do some public hearings. They would take that feedback, incorporate it into their proposal, come out with something somewhere between the governor, the legislature, and even it would be great if the public had a chance to chime in even before the final bill, and we'd come out with a budget that produces that really reflects the state's values and priorities. Here's what actually happens. That's not the case. Similar start. The budget starts with the governor, but they'll do behind the scenes. They tell the departments, what kind of cuts, can you make so that we can make the budget. So they'll ask the departments, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Labor, what kind of cuts can you do, without impacting services, or what can we do to hold costs down? And then there's a behind the scenes lobbying scene that begins as soon as the prior budget is approved. And you'll guess, it's corporations, moneyed interests. They're working to make sure that they get even more in the next budget cycle. The budget hearings themselves, which we're coming up in this next week or two, are highly controlled. They limit the public comment to 3 minutes apiece. And behind the scenes, the lobbyists, they've got meetings. They're doing industry cocktail hours, and they meet with legislators outside of the public view. The legislature, at the last minute, they add budget resolutions. We don't know who they're coming from, what they're for. They often are written down I'm going to call it a paper napkin. It's a little bit more formal than that. But these are, resolutions get added at the 11th hour, literally 11 p.m. at night. They vote for it before midnight. So you don't actually know what's in there, who sponsored them, till after the budget passes. Leadership, which we'll get to in a second, controls what the budget resolutions are, they're included in the final budget or not. And sometimes it just happens so fast, and the deadline we're up against is it creates a lot of sloppy errors that we got to correct. And then in the end, the budget negotiations boil down to 3 people in a room: the governor, Senate president, some the speaker. And somewhere in June 23rd, 24th, we'll see the headline: the deal has been struck. Not very democratic, not very a little democratic or transparent or accountable. And then on June 30th, the budget's signed. Everyone goes on vacation, and then we're left figuring out what the details are months later. I'm going to talk a little bit about the governor here. It plays a very big part of the budget process. All roads lead to the governor. New Jersey, constitutionally, we have a very powerful governor, and that's on a variety of fronts. Governor gets to appoint all the cabinet heads. Here in New Jersey, she also appoints the attorney general. In other states, that's elected. Same thing. Governor appoints key judges in New Jersey. In other states, they're elected. The governor is also, when legislation comes to her desk, has got a couple options. It can veto, sign it into law, but it can also conditionally veto, send it back to the legislature for changes to come back to her. So a little bit more constitutional powers than others. And then it all coming back to budget, again, is the extremely powerful part. Writing the governor takes the first draft, and by writing the budget, she also appoints the Department of Treasury. Department of Treasury is one of our state agencies that says, well, how much money do we think we're going to raise next year? And how does the income taxes look? How's the sales tax look? What's the projections? How much revenue do we have? Because how much revenue you have, that's how much money you can spend. And so the governor appoints the Department of Treasury, and then the Treasury gives her the number of here's how much money you have to spend next year, and it's all a guess, but you can make that rosier or not rosier, or you can have other external people, vet the number, but the governor appoints Treasury and then it's got that number to work with. The governor also has in the budget line item veto to eliminate line item budget issues. So the governor really controls the beginning, the middle, and the end of the process. And the final budget has generally been, and we're in a new world now, so it might be different, but is generally very close to the original proposed governor's budget. The legislature can add line items that can increase, decrease spending through other bills, but the governor's power here and knowledge of the departmental budgets really means the final budget, it's just very close to what the governor originally proposes. Um, it's not to say that the legislature, and these are the other two that I've talked about, are our Assembly Speaker, Craig Coughlin, and Senate President Nick Scutari. So the legislature, it's a three-person, battle here at the final end. Even though they don't get as much power over the budget, there's other things that they can do to hold up the governor's priorities, and they have opportunities for negotiation. So the process that we're going to be going through is the budget process. We're going to have a public hearing where you, me, everyone that's attending the webinar today can raise their hand, get their 3 minutes in the sun. But then the other part of the process is the cabinet departments, Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, Motor Vehicles, Department of Education. The commissioners for each of those departments is going to come up and they have to testify in front of these budget committees. The budget chair is Paul Sarlo in the Senate and Eliana Pinter-Marin on the Assembly side. So they still have to get some public scrutiny, answer questions, from the legislators on this. If at the end of the day, the legislature and the governor don't agree on that final budget, or the deal's not struck or whatever, if they don't send her a budget bill, then New Jersey on July 1st goes into essential services only. And the classic feature we saw a couple of years ago with Governor Chris Christie sitting on the beach, he argued with the legislature. They didn't come to an agreement. And so Island Beach State Park was closed for July 4th weekend. And that's where, Governor Chris Christie, they got a mansion down there, had the beach all to himself because the public park was closed. So, so if the negotiations don't happen, if not everyone agrees, there's other things the legislature can do. That's the governor might have a legislative priority, but if the legislature doesn't send her the bills, there's nothing for her to sign. They could also they have some appointments, some opportunities to weigh in over appointments. So so that's why we talk about like the three people in the room that have a lot of saying what happens here. There are opportunities to make the process better, more transparent. The process that we have that you heard me talk a little bit, it stinks. It really shuts out the public, leaves decisions to be made by these three people in a back room. It can, the last minute decision making, it leads to sloppy budgeting, it encourages kicking problems down the road. Some things that we're proposing is making sure that the legislature has a budget bill out earlier so that the public has an opportunity to comment on it, or legislators that are even in office can get a chance to read, what it is that they're voting on it. The other thing that would make a huge difference is multi-year forecasting. So right now, New Jersey does their budgeting on a year-by-year basis. This year, do we have enough money to keep the lights on, coming in and to keep the lights on? But there's certain things that are coming up, like what we're facing now, these the budget problems that we're facing, they're not unknown. We knew that they were coming. The federal COVID dollars, the pandemic relief, we knew that those federal funds were expiring. Never mind like what the current events of news is today. Like we know that those dollars were expiring. 2 years ago, we looked at the New Jersey transit budget, just crunching the numbers. They could say that, well, the pandemic dollars are disappearing and the ridership levels haven't come back to the pre-pandemic levels. So we're going to be short, in the fare box. We knew that problem was coming, but they didn't account for it, in that year's budget. We had to catch up the year after. So so that would eliminate a lot of like the one-off, the gimmicks, and kicking the can. So this is, I talked about some of the, again, there's problems that we know that are coming. We know that the healthcare costs are rising. Even though the school funding formula they met the demand, the education formula, could probably use more investment. How many towns, townships, school districts are facing the same issues that the state is facing, but they're doing it on the school district level? We have to fire teachers or close schools because we don't have enough funds. And the property taxes, you can raise them, but only so much a year. So the healthcare costs are going up. The electricity rates for the schools and the municipalities are going up. So if just inflation, for my household and my groceries and my budget is going up, and you multiply that by the $60 billion that the state is working on, and we're not going to be able to keep up. All right. So then we get to this, the iron law of the budgets is if we don't have enough money coming in, we're going to see, a loss of services on the other side. You got to cut it. So what is it we're going to lose? Make departments smaller, shrink New Jersey Transit. Um, is it school aid for your local, township? The property tax credits. Right now, we are making the full pension payments. It was $7 billion in this year's budget, but you've probably heard the talking point before. It says, many governors before now, both sides of the aisle, they didn't make the full pension payments. So they basically borrowed from the future. We're paying the full bill now, but that $7 billion is much higher than what it should have been if everyone had done their job all along the way. So we did. I talked about at the top. There are opportunities that you can actually do and get involved and be an advocate in your own local community. How am I doing on time here? 6. All right. I think we're good. All right. So one of the things that our coalition's been doing is getting started early. We know when the budget address comes out last week that there was a lot of maneuvering behind the scenes. I think that this year's cycle was a little bit tougher because it was Governor Mikey Sherrill's first one. So we did a lot of groundwork. We started setting up legislative meetings in lame duck of last year, after Election Day, November, December, January, before the governor came in. Advocates were already talking about budget, knowing that when she takes over office, there's a lot of information taken all at once. It's her first budget, and she's going to be getting started, and knowing that the budget is a big part of the governor's address is what's going to be in the final version. And so we're going to engage, and I'll show you how to do the public testimonies and things like that. They're good, but there's a lot of things that you can do that are outside of that as well. There's opportunities to meet with your own local legislators. You could tag them on social media, get involved, and like raise awareness on issues that you're concerned and would like to see funded. We talk about power mapping. If your legislator is one of the people that's a decider, they get to vote yay or no, and they're an influencer. If you have the speaker or the Senate president as one of your local legislators, your vote matters a little bit more in New Jersey. But what we do is we look at the power mapping. So who influences the legislators? If you don't have the Senate president in your district, the legislators have more influence over the Senate president than I do. Eric Benson, Essex County resident. Staff that work for the legislators have a direct impact. So getting to know is if you get set up a meeting, I'm always glad to get one, even if it's with staff. Oh, the assemblyman's not available, but the chief of staff will be glad to meet with you. Being a legislator in New Jersey, it's a part-time job, but the staff that support them are full-time employees, and sometimes they know the information, some of the behind the scenes, and they talk to other staff about like what's happening and what might be coming and what's being discussed. And then you can go bigger. So who else influences the legislator? When we did our corporate transit fee campaign, saying you were going to raise dollars from the corporate profits that earn over $10 million. Big success. We did it. But even though it was a common sense policy, it was the right thing to do, and NJ Transit needed the money, we were having a hard time getting that one off the ground. But what about mayors? Mayors are very influential. Again, over Eric Benson, I'm just a guy. But the mayor in the town that I live in, he represents 40,000 people that live in town. And so if I can get him to weigh in with the legislator, that means more than just me making a phone call or setting up a meeting. And so when we did this corporate transit fee, we looked at like every town that's got a New Jersey transit stop where parents are getting stuck on the platforms, can't get home from work. All the trains are canceled. They call the mayor calls the assemblyman, and it just kind of creates this like, we got to do something about NJ Transit. So, and all these people have like different influence. And so you do this power mapping, like who's got, what's going to influence this person, the decider that you want. And you look and start looking at those circles. And then you can put together a map of like a campaign of like who influences them and what can we do to contact them, raise awareness, and move it up the chain here. And then I'll put a couple links in the chat. But there's lots of ways to get involved. I'd say I'm going to put 2 in there. New Jersey Policy Perspective. Again, they come out with these great research papers. They go through the nitty gritty of the details of many different policies. They crunch the numbers. Getting on their email list, you get invited to a couple of their events each year. And usually when they do like a report, hey, this is hot off the press. This is what we've been analyzed. Here's what we recommend. You get those. And then I've got a for the many list as well. And that's going to be the campaign grassroots. Hey, this is breaking. We want to click here to send you a letter or legislator. So we'll get you both of those. New Jersey Policy Perspective, they're also great on social media. At NJ Policy on almost all platforms. You can find them there. We're also on Blue Sky and Twitter. I got to add those since last year. And then testifying and contacting your legislator. So here's my last thing before we do questions. Do this one. Okay, I'm going to give you a tour as we go. Share the screen. How are we doing here? Yes. Okay. So here's the New Jersey legislative homepage. If you're not sure, I just type in Bing, Yahoo, Google, whatever search engine you like, New Jersey legislative homepage, and I'm sure it'll take you here. We are in peak budget season, so we have an extra tab over here. Over here, they got fiscal year 2027. So you can click that link, and it gets you into some of the details. Department of Treasury, Office of Management and Budgeting, the governor's proposed budget. I think if I click this, it's going to open up a new tab and you won't be able to see it. But it's got the budget in brief. That's the short details. I mean, it's 110 pages long. But it's the governor's proposal in 110 pages. The final budget is a couple hundred pages. So when I talked about the process, it's not great. We are digesting and going off information, and actually there's a public hearing in Trenton tomorrow, and we can go, show up, testify, raise your hand. You get 3 minutes, and you have to sign up. But you can comment on the governor's budget and what it is that you'd like to see in your community. But we don't have the line-by-line proposal yet. We've got the headlines. But if you click this link, you can see what the governor's proposed, but not the full detail yet. That's a process that they're working on. It's a little bit tricky because this is Governor Mikey Sherrill's first, so there's a lot of catching up to do. But usually we'd have those details by now. Online, you can see there's an online registration, and they've got the dates. The Senate Budget and Appropriations Committee, and the Assembly Budget Committee. They both, you have an opportunity. So you can sign up to testify, once for the Senate, once for the Assembly. There was more options here. They're starting to fill up. Senate budget, you can register. They do 2 budget hearings. They're going to do one virtually next week, and then they're going to do one at MetLife Stadium. So you can still register to testify for that one. The Assembly Budget Committee, they had early morning, late morning, afternoon slots, but this doesn't look like they're there anymore. There are opportunities to, I'll send it to Eric and Calandria, like you can send an email to, so make your comments part of the official public testifying. Okay. Guidelines, instructions is, that opens up a new tab, you can't see it. But homepage, budget. And then they have in here, stop my share. If you click the budget hearings video, share this one. I'll just do one to give you an example. So if you click budget hearings, it goes to budget hearing schedules, Senate and Assembly. This is the Senate version of it. It'll give you the details. So they are doing this, the public hearing conducted remotely. They even changed the date. They said, it's going to be Thursday the 26th. Oh, wait, just kidding. We're going to move that back a couple days. It's still not great for transparency. They got another public hearing, and then they're going to get a revenue forecast, budget overview, over the Office of Legislative Services. The state treasurer is going to say, here's our predictions of how much money that we're going to have coming in. And then I talked about this. All the cabinets, every department's going to come before the Senate budget. And you can listen to these live. I'll show you how to do that in a second. You can see Department of Labor, Department of Environmental Protection. These are all agencies that are going to be coming before them. You can watch and listen to these departmental hearings. Advocates will often work with friendly legislators on the budget committees to prompt questions, because the legislators can ask them. But the legislators are not experts in everything. If you're really concerned about education funding, where's the money to keep the schools going coming from? when the Department of Education comes before the state budget, the legislators can grill them and ask some questions about that. But if you have a legislator that's on there, or if you know that someone's like really concerned about education, you can prompt legislators to ask questions. But these public hearings you can listen to, but you cannot, the public is not able to engage on them. And I think that's it. I can pause there and see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Eric. This was fantastic. We do have a question in the chat. And Sandy is asking if there is any federal money outside of the 60 billions in the state money. Like if we have also, in addition of state funding, if we have also federal funding.
I'm scrolling down. Is there any federal money outside? 60 billion. So New Jersey's budget, yes, most of the federal dollars are outside of the 60 billion. The 60 billion alone, take me a minute to find the number. New Jersey has about 30% of our expenditures total come from federal dollars. Now, they don't necessarily go into the state budget because they get spent directly on other programs. So like the money that comes in from the federal government that goes directly out to Medicaid recipients or SNAP recipients, for example, doesn't get counted in the budget because it goes straight through. So I think some education funding as well. Some of our departmental hearings, like the Department of Environmental Protection. For folks that know me, I used to be an environmentalist now, but the Department of Environmental Protection, half their budget comes from federal dollars and federal grants. It's not in the $60 billion of the New Jersey state budget because it goes directly through the Department of Environmental Protection. They're in charge of enforcing the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act. Those are federal programs, the agencies authorized to implement those laws, and that money goes like directly to those services. It's not counted in the bigger $60 billion.
Thank you, Eric. I see Laura. Hi, Laura.
Yeah, I'm trying to, Eric, I'm trying to figure out how to register for the public hearing on March 24th. But it looks like when I go to do that, it says that committee members, invitees, and staff will participate. And when I go to register, I don't see a place for me to register for that one.
Yeah.
I only see a place for the March 30th one.
So they're first come, first serve, because everyone gets 3 minutes of testimony, and then I think they put a cap on it. And so
How do I register? Because I don't, honestly, the page, I don't see the place to register.
they might have pulled the link if they're at capacity already.
Okay. That's what I
figured. Funny thing, no, it's not funny, but one thing about these public hearings, and we talk about them just going to autopilot, is that at the beginning of the public hearing, the legislators, the committee chairs, Paul Sarlo, Eliana Pinto-Marin, they can say, who gets to go first, or how much time does each person have, and sometimes they let somebody just get up right at the top, and BIA or the Chamber of Commerce, they could take 10 minutes, but the rest of the public gets 10 minutes or 3 minutes each. So there's room for improvement in the process. But if there's no hearings, if you can't register, then they're at capacity. I think they're full. But there is a link that you can send a comment to directly. So I'll get you those email addresses to send comments to, so that they're a part of the official process. I'll get that to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
We will make sure to add this information in the follow-up email. So, thank you so much, Laura. Do we have any more questions? Okay, I want to share also in the chat actually, let me go ahead and do this. Let me come here and.
Thank you, Nikki. You're great.
Oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, here. So thank you so much, Eric, for this amazing presentation. I love the budget. I keep learning every day, every time. So it's always good to hear from you and in this topic thing, and a topic that is too close to all of us. Even though we some of us don't think it is actually super close to all of us. I want to take a moment before we close to ask everyone to join their local league and take advantage of what the League of Women Voters have to offer. We offer education, we offer trainings, and we offer trips to Trenton too, and they are very fun. And so please join your local league and you're going to have a great community around you. In the link that I post in the chat, you're going to find a sign that says join, and by your zip code, you're going to find the local league that is closer to you. And here in the screen, you can see our list of trainings that we have. We have covered Know Your Rights, we have covered the legislative process, and today we cover the budget. We have some other trainings coming up, and you can also sign up in the link that I posted in the chat. And the next training that we are going to be holding is reaching marginalized voters. I want to thank everybody for joining today, but especially Eric. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining this training, and we're going to see you in another training with the League of Women Voters. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Eric. Good night, folks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.